Thank you, Janet. Good evening. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to say something about you that is impressive. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and for a little over 30 years, I've worked as a therapist, an administrator, an executive director of various residential treatment programs for traumatized and aggressive teenagers throughout New Jersey. Worked at Carrier Clinic, worked at the Legacy Treatment Services, a bunch of places. And of course, I worked with the schools that they ran for the alternative schools for them. I've also done a lot of training in juvenile justice facilities throughout the state, schools throughout the country, and but my favorite thing is to talk to parents. That's my favorite thing, because the fact that you are here tonight when you could be resting, you could be watching TV, you could be home, and you're here, it says a lot about you. It says that you are committed to seeing, okay, what else can I add to my toolbox for this incredibly important thing, parenting, so that I can be able to bring out the greatness in my children. And if you're interested in growing the qualities that you know are in there, that peek out every once in a while, if you're interested in bringing out the best values and behaviors and qualities in your kids, I think you're in the exact right place. The Nurtured Heart is taking New Jersey by storm. We just received a $12 million grant from SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Association, to train all of our residential treatment centers, all of our care management organizations, all of the state-sponsored mental health services in New Jersey are going to be using the Nurtured Heart, and we're already 2 years into the 4-year grant. It is, in my opinion, basic training for raising healthy, solid kids. So has anybody heard of the Nurtured Heart? Okay, a few people. Are you using it? Yep. Thanks. So Somerset County, you said Somerset County is using it in the schools. And Effective School Solutions, who I work for, as well as I do private training consulting all over the country, has really adopted a Nurtured Heart as a staple because, well, you're going to hear all about Nurtured Heart today. I mean, I've done Nurtured Heart in 5-day trainings, 1-day trainings, 3-hour trainings, and tonight I'm going to do it in 60 minutes. So you're going to be getting the Blitzkrieg version. But I really encourage you to interact with me, ask questions. I'm going to give you the basics of the approach. I bet some of you say, well, I'm already Nurtured Heart, and I bet you are. But it's deceptive because it sounds like a really touchy-feely, gentle kind of an approach. But it's got a strict, no-nonsense aspect of it, and it's got an accountability aspect. So let's get going and start talking about it. So why do I love the Nurtured Heart approach? Because I think kids need to be stronger on the inside more than ever. They need to have a good sense of who they are and a good sense of strength. When I hear these stories about these kids, hurting themselves because of bullying and sometimes killing themselves because of bullying, I think to myself, bullying is devastating, but if you have a strong sense of who you are, it hurts, but it doesn't devastate. But what really hurts is when people call you names and you believe they've got it right because you don't really feel a high-quality sense of self. Nurtured Heart builds self-esteem. It builds genuine love for yourself and appreciation for yourself. It's designed to create success in many ways. You've all heard catch a kid being good. I love that. I think that's a great concept. But I've taught this to teachers and parents, and they've said, okay, I want to catch my kid being good, but it just ain't happening. And while I'm waiting, a whole bunch of bad things are happening. This approach says sometimes you have to set children up for success, set them up, initiate it, get them going. You can't just wait to catch them, and that's another thing. And the other thing that it does is it shows us who our youth really are. Because I think that one of the things that happens a lot is we complain that our kids are lazy, or our kids don't have a work ethic, or our kids don't understand respect. We lament about these things. And I've had parents say to me, my kid is so lazy and they just don't want to do work and they don't want to clean up and they don't want to work for anything, and they're complaining about that. And the child gets a reputation. There's a quote, I showed to teachers that basically says, my teacher believed that I was brilliant, so I was. And it's a very powerful thing what we say to children, what we say to them about them. I'm going to get into that a little more, but the nurtured heart believes that the truth is we're born with greatness in us. Each of us in our DNA has the ability and the potential to live out a great quality. One little metaphor I give is, and I do really love audience participation. It makes me feel like you're with me, so please chime in when I'll ask you to participate. But if I had a tomato seed in my fingers right now, and I was holding it up here, would you all agree that within that tomato seed are the instructions for it to become a beautiful, healthy tomato plant? Great. That's the kind of participation I'm looking for. Thank you. And if I put that tomato seed in fertile soil with all the nutrients it needs, give it water, oxygen, sunlight, good weather, in a few weeks, I'm not sure how many weeks it takes, but in the time it takes for the plant to mature, if I walked by that plant, I would see a beautiful green tomato plant, right? With beautiful red tomatoes. It lived its destiny. It had greatness in its seed, and it manifested that greatness in its being what it was meant to be. And I would look at that plant and say, that plant is great. But what if I took that same tomato seed and I put it in rocky soil, and I put it in, didn't have any nutrients in it? And what if I didn't give it enough sunlight and enough oxygen and gave it terrible weather conditions and dry, and I visited that plant at the same time? It wouldn't be a very healthy plant, would it? It would be a wilting, shrivelly thing with these brown little balls that maybe could be tomatoes if you used your imagination. And I would say, that's a bad plant. That's a terrible plant. I think when some of our kids take a wrong turn and they start behaving badly, whether it's being disrespectful, getting involved with the wrong crowd, making really bad decisions, breaking laws, being defiant, difficult in school, challenging, we look at them and we say, that kid's got problems. But Nurtured Heart believes that the real kid. How many of you have ever seen or experienced a child that really you thought had a terrible attitude? Anybody? Okay, I have. If you haven't experienced them, I can introduce you to a few. Even when I ask teachers to think about the students that they find the most difficult to work with, I ask them this question. I want you to think about it. Every once in a while, this kid who seems so difficult and challenging and disrespectful, every once in a while, they're kind. Every once in a while, they cooperate. Every once in a while, they're helpful. Would you agree? Every once in a while, a great kid peeks out from behind that nasty exterior and shows himself. That's the real kid. So the question is, Nurtured Heart believes that we should, when that kid shows up, when your lazy teenager finally cleans their room, our response should not be, well, geez, it's about time. Our response should be, wow, there's the real you, keeping your room clean and growing. And we can grow great behavior that way. What do our kids want most from adults? Anybody want to take a shot? They want positive reinforcement. What did you say? Attention? Attention. Focus. They want our focus. They want what? Recognition. Thank you. I'm a little hard of hearing. I apologize. Recognition, attention. You're absolutely right. They want our recognition. They want our attention. They want our focus. That's the most powerful thing we have to positively reinforce their behavior. Now, I want you all to stay with me on that. What gets more of your attention, focus, relationship? When they are that lazy, aggravating kid, or when they clean their room every once in a while? Which one of those typically gets more attention, gets more emotion, gets more discussion? Be honest. Right. We in this culture, and I don't know if it's the same for other cultures, maybe some of you that have experienced other cultures or come from other cultures can tell me. In this culture, we give tremendous attention to the things that disturb us. Watch the news. And it's not the same in every part of the country. The news around here is all bad. Bad news sells. People watch bad news. We are very focused on bad things. And as a result, what we focus on grows. Here's a fact, not an opinion. What you pay attention to grows. You ever been late somewhere? Do you notice you hit every light? You're not hitting every light, you're just paying attention to every light. You ever pick a line in a grocery store that you think is going to be the fastest? Or you ever been driving in traffic and 3 lanes are stopped and your lane is moving slow, so you move to the next lane? What happens? It stops. Not really. It stops and goes equally. You're just focused on it. You ever have bad thoughts in your mind and you're thinking about them and they get worse and worse, don't they? If you have a child and their behavior is starting to disturb you, you will give that behavior more and more of your attention, and what you'll be telling your child is, the more you disturb me, the more of my heart I give to you. The more you break my values and our family values, the more I will sit you down and have a long conversation with you. I see kids in school cursing teachers out, and they're sent to go talk to a counselor who sits and listens to them and empathizes with them and helps them work with it. I see sometimes we send kids out of class when they're acting badly, and we send them to a group with a bunch of other kids acting badly, and then they have a party with them. I worked in a special ed school where when the kids got really upset and lost their cool and hit somebody, we'd send them on cool down walks with another staff. So the kids that were working hard in the class stayed in the class and looked out the window and saw the kids that were acting out taking walks with their favorite staff. Something's wrong here. Somewhere along the line, we have used the most powerful thing we have, our relationship, and pour it on our children when they disturb us. When they follow our rules, we go, good job, proud of you. That's a good job, way to go. But have them steal $20 out of our wallet? Whoa, we're gonna sit them down and we're gonna have a talk. And it's gonna be a serious talk. And it's gonna be a talk that says, I care about you. I'm upset by your behavior. And what the kids get is when I do something disturbing, I get the biggest, fullest connection with my mother or father or parent or guardian or whoever I'm living with, grandmother. I seem to get all this connection. Our kids today are starving for connection. We need to stop giving it to them so abundantly when they disturb us, and we need to start giving it more abundantly when they please us and start growing. We call it grow the flowers, starve the weeds. So, am I saying anything you disagree with? Do we not give more relationship to our children when they upset us? Do we not give them detail? Detail. You have your child, God forbid, curse. They curse. You sit down and you say, you should never speak like that. You get very focused and you get very descriptive. And your child's like, wow, I've never quite seen you like this. You really love me. You really care about me. If I'm ever wondering if you love or care about me, all I got to do is break one of your rules. And when I follow the rules, it's boring. I go into classes everywhere I go and I take notes. I watch teachers with the students. And I see kids raising their hands, following the rule, and I see kids doing hard work and participating, and they, if anything, they get, nice answer, good job. But if I see a kid do something bad, throw a book at somebody, hit somebody, they get a long conversation. They get a meeting with 3 adults. The Nurtured Heart says, adults, do you want to grow? Tell me what qualities, what values do you cherish that you want your children to live? Tell me some of them. What are some of the values or character traits that you really think are important for your children? Honesty. Kindness. Honesty and kindness. Those are 2 great ones. So when your child is honest, you want to grow that honesty, sit them down and say, today you told me the truth. You said that you have not done your homework in a week. Now, I'm upset that you haven't done your homework in a week, but let's talk about the fact that you were honest with me, because being honest is important. And have that long conversation that we always have when we're upset with them about something we're pleased with. You were honest. And I promise you that will build honesty in your child. You have a child who seems mean, who seems to be cruel. I hope you don't, but let's say you do. You have a child who picks on kids, who's a bully. If you sit them down and go, I don't want a bully in my family. I don't want you to do that kind of thing. I didn't raise you to be that way. I don't like that. I don't like that. You know, all that energy and all that connection is focusing on that negative trait. You'll grow it. You'll grow it. If you want your child not to be a bully and be kind, who can tell me what you should look for when they do, and then give them detailed feedback? Give them what would you look for if you want to grow kindness? What's an example of something you might see your child doing that you could call living kindness? See them helping a friend. You see them picking something up that their sister dropped. You see them calming their sister or a little brother down when they're upset, and you say, I'm seeing kindness being displayed by my child. Let me grow it. And you'll grow it by saying, I am so impressed with you right now. I saw how kind you were and gentle you were. You helped her do her homework. You helped her calm her down because she was upset. That's the kind of kindness that I know lives in you. I'm so proud of you. I promise you, you'll grow kindness. You see, in our culture, we see what we don't like and we squash it. When teachers are trained, they're trained to manage a classroom. When kids are behaving and following rules, they get, okay, good job, good job. But when they break rules, we take them out in the hallway and have a relationship with them and have a conversation with them. Or we send them down to therapeutic people to talk to them. If you want to grow qualities in your kids, pick the qualities you want to grow and look for evidence of them. And when they show up, give your children relationship around that quality. It'll grow. That's what the Nurtured Heart believes. And the Nurtured Heart believes, watch your energy, guys. Watch where your energy goes. When we are upset, we are the most animated, connected human beings on the world. We get into great detail. We tell our kids precisely what bothers us about them. And in essence, we grow the kid we don't want, because they start realizing, I get relationship when I behave this way, and you keep treating me like this, so I guess I am. I hear parents all the time, my kid's so lazy, my kid's got a bad attitude, my kid's so lazy, my kid's got a bad attitude. If you keep talking about that about them, eventually they'll say, I guess I am lazy, I guess I'll live lazy, because my parents think I'm lazy and they have lots of evidence and they're talking to me about it all the time and they keep complaining and it upsets them. I must be lazy, I'll live lazy. And then we now have participated in creating the problem. Are you with me? Okay. So my next question, we grow up, we are born into this world and we hear a lot of voices. Our parents, our relatives, our grandparents, our siblings, our friends, other peers. Which voice is the one that has the most profound effect on us? Which one do we listen to more than any of them? Take a shot. Huh? Okay. Were you at one of these trainings before? That's pretty good. The inner voice. The voice, now you all have to say yes or I'll feel very lonely. Do you have a voice that talks to you in your head? Yes. Several. Like, you ever have a voice that talks to you when you're trying to sleep at night and you really want to go to sleep, but the voice is kind of playing over something that happened or something you're worried about the next day? That's your inner voice. This inner voice is a powerful thing. Sometimes, let me tell you about my inner voice. My inner voice can be so kind to me sometimes. My inner voice says, Frank, you're an awesome speaker. You really connect with people. You have a gift, and you really should be blessed. You should be appreciative of the fact that you get to make your living doing what you're meant to do. I like that voice. I could listen to that all day. It's kind to me. It's supportive to me. But then I have a voice in my head that's mean to me, that actually says to me, you forget names all the time. Sometimes people you've known for a long time. That makes you look stupid. You know you're stupid. You're really stupid. You do public speaking for a living and you forget people's names? People love to hear their names. What's wrong with you? I mean, that's me talking to me. Anybody have any answers as to why we would carry a negative voice in our head that says mean things to us? Why would we ever allow a negative voice to live in our heads when there's so many living negative voices out in the world that we have to deal with? Why would we let one live in our heads? Any answers for that? Because if you can answer that one, you're pretty good. Oh, we have an answer? Why do we have a negative voice in our heads? Why would we allow it? Somebody put that negative voice in your head? Yeah. My next question was, what makes our inner voice either kind to us, mean to us, or take turns being kind and mean? What makes that voice? And you just said one suggestion is all the voices we hear growing up, right? All the key voices, mom, dad, siblings, peers, Oprah, Dr. Phil, all these people that we listen to, experts, teachers are a big one. All those voices come together and they become our inner voice. If you grow up in a family where your parents said things to you like, you are amazing, you are so kind and you have such a wonderful spirit, I see it every day, you're so kind to your sister and your brother, and I love your brain, I love your mind, the way you think, the way you analyze things. You have a parent like that, there's a good chance that the inner voice is going to be one that believes in the qualities that you possess. But some of the children that I've worked with have experienced messages like, what is wrong with you? Why do you keep dishonoring this family? Why can't you be more like your brother? You're just like your no good father. Sometimes I wonder what life would have been like if you weren't born. Can you imagine those kinds of statements and what they do to your inner voice? I ask teachers everywhere, and this isn't a knock on teachers, it's a knock on our culture. I ask teachers a question. If I filmed you during a typical week at school, and I counted up, I took film, little snippets of when you were speaking to students about them, not about their homework, about them, when you were giving them feedback about themselves. And I had 100 clips of you giving feedback to your students. And we break those clips on average into two types. One type where you're saying, I love that you raised your hand. Yeah, that took courage. I like the way this group is sharing supplies. I love that you're prepared today. I love that you have a smile on your face and you're participating. Those would be positive comments. And then there's critical comments. Stop talking while I'm talking. That's disrespectful. That's disrupting the class. Stop being a pest. Stop bothering everybody. Stop being this. Stop doing that. Those would be critical comments. I asked them on average, What percentage in a week of 100 times you talk to students would you be telling them about great qualities that you love and want to grow? And what percentage of that 100 would you be telling them about things that you don't like in them that you want them to change? Anybody want to guess what, out of 100 schools I've been to in the past 5 years, mostly middle schools and high schools, what the percentage is that almost all of the teachers tell me of positive to negative comments is? What do you think? 20-80? 20% negative and 80% positive? Or the other way? 80-20, do you think that's pretty close? That would be if there was improvement. It's 90-10. 90% of the time, it's corrective comments. And they're not mean, they're just, what you're doing is unacceptable, change it. And 10% of the times, it's, I noticed the quality in you that is beautiful, the kindness, the sharing, the initiative, the courage. So we're using this powerful relationship to grow negativity. And just as an aside, if you were all single and I were going to set you up on a date with a friend of mine, and I were telling you about the qualities of my friend, how would you feel if I told you that the friend that I'm setting you up with, I just want to tell you that when he's talking to you about you, 90% of the time it's going to be critical? How many of you want to go on that date? I said this once, and a gentleman in the back raised his hand and said, I'm in that relationship. Can you help me? But, so our teachers' voices, our parents' voices. I wish somebody, before I became a parent, would have told me that the way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. The way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. And long after we're gone, that inner voice is going to be speaking to them, and that's the one they're going to be listening to more than anything. So if that inner voice says, I'm no good, I'm not good enough, no matter what success they experience in life, the negative narrator will convince them it was a fluke. That's why if you're a student in my class and you think you're terrible at math, your inner voice says you're terrible at math, and I come up to you and I say, great job on your math number 6, you got it right. The sad thing is, if her narrator says that she's bad at math, she's going to find a way not to take that compliment the way I meant it. What might her inner voice say to her to negate the benefits of that wonderful compliment? What might the inner voice lie to her about to make her feel lousy instead of good that I told her she did great? Anybody have a quote that your inner voice, negative inner voice, can say? That was an easy question. Anybody could have gotten that. What else could the inner voice say? Wait till you see the other ones. They're all wrong. Or, why are you lying to me? What do you want from me? The sad thing is, kids will never grow into their greatness with a negative narrator. So I think the best thing in the world we can do for our children is build a positive narrator. And the way we build a positive narrator is not saying, I think you're great, I think you're wonderful, I think you're beautiful. It's by providing irrefutable evidence to our children of the qualities that we see in them. Talk more about the evidence of their qualities, when they're living values, when they're being kind, when they're being honest, when they're having integrity, when they're doing the right things. Talk to them in detail about it. And let's do a lot less talking to them about the things that disturb us that they do, because we don't want to give a lot of relationship and a lot of face time to those things. Does that make sense? But would you all agree we do spend more time talking to our kids about the things that disturb us in them? And inadvertently, my son was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactive disorder when he was in second grade. Okay? And we waited 2 years to put him on medication because we were dead set against it. But once we put him on medication, he got a little better, then a little worse, then a little better, then a little worse. And his whole life, he always had trouble focusing. And guess what his social work father and dozens of other adults said to him on a daily basis? Jared, you have trouble focusing. Let me help you with this. You have this thing called ADHD. You have to compensate for it because you have trouble focusing. You have trouble paying attention. What was the world telling my son over and over and over again that eventually he had to learn to believe? He couldn't focus. But when he started to focus, like he watched a movie like The Little Mermaid, he watched The Little Mermaid and he memorized all the songs. That's tremendous focus, right? Do you think that his social work father would say, "You have unbelievable focus. I just saw you using it," and began to change the narrator? Does anybody know what I did say instead of that? You have a guess? Why can't you focus on your schoolwork the same way you focus on that? So I couldn't even build up his narrator. And by the time he was 10 or 11, we had a bad relationship. He was angry at me because I knew the truth. And the truth was he couldn't focus. And so he lived the truth of an unfocused, angry kid. Because I never, ever pointed out when he was focused. I just sat back and said, wow, I'm glad he could pay attention. That's the mistake I made. But the Nurtured Heart saved my relationship with my son, albeit when he was 16, when a lot of damage had been done. So let's get into some of this material. We have to train our mind to see the good in everything, because I don't know about you, but ever since like first grade where they said, which one of these things is not like the other? And what did they tell you to do on the thing that was different? Circle it, and my teacher told me to put an X through it. Okay? The thing that was different was bad. So I trained my mind to look for what's wrong. Look for what's different is wrong. And I'm an expert on what's wrong. In order to use the Nurtured Heart, well, let me do this with you. What qualities does it take for a parent to come out, what is today? Wednesday? Tuesday? Wednesday? Come out on a Wednesday night when you could be doing a million other things and you're tired and you've worked. What qualities do you think are reasonable to suggest you possess that you came out here tonight? What qualities? Curiosity. Open mind, that maybe there's stuff I could add to my parenting toolbox. Maybe. What else? Determination. Character. Caring. What's that? Insecurity, like, okay. That, you know what you saying that tells me? That you have strength of character to say something like that. To be able to say, yeah, it could be insecurity. But the bottom line is that we have to get good at this. I'm going to do a little experiment with you. You're going to watch a video, and the video is going to ask you to count how many times a team dressed in white outfits passes a basketball to each other, okay? So watch the video, count how many times, and the minute the video stops, yell it out. How many times did the white team pass the ball to each other?
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the...
Go!
How many?
The answer is 13.
Excellent.
But did you see the moonwalking bear?
The moonwalking bear will be entering in 3, 2, 1. There he is. The point is, if you're looking for laziness in your kid, all you'll find is laziness. If you're looking for a bad attitude, all you're going to notice is the bad attitude. If you're looking for a disrespectful mouth, all you're going to notice is a disrespectful mouth because that's all you're looking for. I told you to look for something, so you missed. How many people saw the moonwalking bear the first time? A couple of you. You had a wider view. You didn't fall for that. Teachers, I tell them, you have a kid that calls out all the time, maybe one of your students, one of your kids calls out all the time. The teacher, when the kid comes into the classroom, if he doesn't call out for 20 minutes, the teacher isn't thinking, wow, that's 20 minutes where you haven't called out. I should probably notice that and grow it and say something. But why don't we say, hey, Billy, great job. You didn't call out for 20 minutes. Everybody knows why. Somebody tell me. Why don't we say it? Well, that's really a big answer. People say they're supposed to do that. Why should I clap my hands for what you should be doing? That really triggers me. It really does. Because if they're doing it all the time well, then I understand you not celebrating it. But if they're not doing it and they start doing it, celebrate it. And then when they get it into their habit, move on to celebrating other things like getting into college. Move on. But there's a second reason why people don't celebrate when a kid who always calls out doesn't call out for 20 minutes. What do you think it is? If I mention it, they'll say, wait a minute, that's right, I haven't. Hey. Now, that's the same fallacy that when I get into the supermarket line with one cart and the others all had 5, I'm going to end up waiting because they're going to have a problem with a check or a problem with a price check. That's called confirmation bias. When you have a theory, you only pay attention to when it comes true. I think that 9 out of 10 times when you say to a student, I really appreciate that you raised your hand and you waited to be called on and didn't call out, 9 out of 10 times they'll do more waiting and not calling out. 1 time out of 10, they'll say, oh, I forgot, and do it. We should always point out the behaviors we want to grow. And then once they get those behaviors down, move your energy recognizing to the next thing you want to grow in their progression. Does that make sense? That's the idea. The reason I showed you that video is because unless you notice, when you go home tonight, watch your children. These kids that are here tonight, they're sitting beautifully, they're paying attention, they're being polite, they're doing so many wonderful things. You're great kids. You're showing your greatness right now. You could be, what could you be doing right now that wouldn't be so good? What would be something that your parents would be upset if you did? What was that? Can anybody tell me what they could be doing? They could be running around, they could be yelling, they could be bothering their parents. They're not doing any of those things. That's what you start noticing when you buy into Nurtured Heart. You notice your kids are behaving and you lean over and you quietly say, you are being so good, you're behaving. I know this is hard. This guy's talking, this isn't as entertaining as I hoped it would be. But, I appreciate it. I promise you, that's the way to grow greatness in your kids. That's the way to grow it. And when you grow that greatness, I promise you, they'll work on the parts that you're not happy about. They'll work on them because they like the idea of living greatness, living it. This is a quote from Nurtured Heart. Our goal in the Nurtured Heart is to reach inside you, child, adult, unlock your greatness, pull it out and reflect it back in ways you cannot defend against. Once you could see what I'm pointing out, you'll live it. Once you could see that you are good kids, you'll live it. Once you could see that you are focused, you'll be more focused. Once you could see that you are smart, you'll be more smart. But Nurtured Heart believes that you have to give evidence, and we're going to talk about that. You can't just tell a kid you're great. You have to give evidence. You have to prove it. And you can prove it every day by paying attention They'll show you the qualities. Notice them, you'll grow them. Nurtured Heart wants to build inner wealth. We call it self-esteem, belief in oneself. We don't want improvement, we want transformation. I want you to learn to love yourself and to see the great qualities, because once you see them, you'll live them. I already talked about this. I'm going to skip some of this because we don't have enough time. So these are the 3 stands of the Nurtured Heart. Stand 1, absolutely no. When you are goofing off, when you're not living the qualities that I know are the true you, you're not going to get a lot of attention from me. You're not going to get a lot of relationship from me. You're not going to get a long conversation. If anything, like I tell teachers, if a student is tapping their pen and annoying you, there's a couple of ways you can deal with it. Like if you were a student tapping your pen, I could do it this way. Why do you have to keep tapping your pen? Do you realize how disruptive that is? I've told you a couple times to stop, and you continue. Exactly what is the purpose of that? That is a lot of energy. So this student, when they tap their pen, can control me like a puppet. Because they can, if they're bored with the lesson, all they have to do is tap their pen, and I give them a show. I give them relationship. And I'm also saying, you're a pen tapper. You're a pen tapper, aren't you? And you realize the power of pen tapping, and I guess I am a pen tapper. So I'm building the kid I don't want to build, and I'm giving this kid a lot of attention. Other kids in the class start to think, you know, I got 3 A's, and I've been a good student all semester. I don't get this kind of conversation with Mr. Frank. Maybe I should start tapping my pen. Maybe I should cause the disruption, okay? Can anybody think of a way for me to deal with this student that doesn't involve all this talking and all this drama and all this big show? Can anybody suggest what I might say that takes less words than that big thing I just said? Can I have the pen? Can I have the pen? Your voice was calm, not energized, not dramatic, and it was, can I have the pen? 5 words. Can anybody beat that? Less words? You can just ignore it. But let's say it continues and you want to address it. What do you think? No. So I like that. That's good. So you might just say, no. And she knows what I'm talking about. And if she stops, the Nurtured Heart says, thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you, I appreciate that. And I move on. And that's stand 1. I'm not going to give you a lot of me around pen tapping. But let's say you never raise your hand, and I see you raise your hand and take a chance and answer a question. That's going to get a lot of energy. And I'm going to show you that the world will respond beautifully and give you a lot of validation when you take risks, when you try, when you really take a risk. And the world is going to give you boring responses when you goof off. Which world do you think the kids want to live in? The exciting world. But we make acting out and behaving badly more exciting because adults get crazy. They get crazy. They get really, really out of it. So do people understand stand 1? Because can anybody think of a situation where your child might behave a certain way where you can't help but go crazy and say a lot of words and make a big deal about it? Like what? Okay, so they're playing games all night. So that you want to let them know that if they really want to have their mom go nuts, like if I'm your son and I'm really mad at you, like a puppet, I can get you to perform by just staying on the video all night. And then when you find me, I could talk to my brother. Did you see how crazy she got? Her face got red. Her eyes were bulging out. She was really out of control. Let's put that in my bag of tricks, because that really is a good way to get back at mom. The reason why we think we have to make dramatic reactions is because we want them to know how serious what they did is. We want them not to do it again. So let's try to come up with a response that's a consequence, but let's not give it any drama or long talks or let them see us getting all upset. Okay, so there won't be any video games for the weekend. Okay, and there won't be any video games for the weekend. And that's the end of that discussion. And they can start freaking out, but the bottom line is I'm not going to say it like this. How about no video games for the weekend? Because that's too energizing. That's too dramatic. Some cultures tell us to be dramatic and to be intense. I was talking to some people that said in my culture, you know, dishes fly and people and screaming and you know, and if that works, if that raises the kids you want to raise, who am I to go against your culture? Do it. If you're bringing about kids that are respectful and behave and that's the method you use, then do it. I'm not here to tell you that Nurtured Heart is better than what your culture tells you, but if you're thinking that what you're doing isn't working, you might want to think about trying giving relationship to the things you want to grow and withholding connection and giving boring consequences to the things you don't want to grow. That's the first two stands of the Nurtured Heart. Stand one, let's not energize negative behavior by giving it the relationship kids so desperately want. Stand two, let's notice the things that we want to grow. We want to notice kindness. We want to notice honesty. What else do we want to notice and grow? Respect. So every time they're respectful, we want to say, I like the respect. I saw you look me in the eyes. I saw you shook my hand. I saw you accepted my consequence. And you'll grow respect. And they'll start realizing when I live the values that my parents really want me to live, I get a lot of recognition and validation. And eventually, some people say, Frank, the world doesn't give you all this validation. We're creating a false world. But how many of you, when you were kids and you brought home a paper from school when you were little in first grade or second grade, did your parents put it up on the refrigerator? Or tell other people about your successes? Eventually, they stop doing that, right? We don't, as adults, expect that our first positive performance evaluation, our wife or our husband puts it on the refrigerator. Because we need that to get kick-started into getting into a good groove. So I'm not saying that you always have to make a big deal when your kids are 35, but I have to tell you, my son's 28 and my other son is 24. And every time I interact with them, I tell them something about them that I'm impressed with. And they live that. They live those qualities because not just because I'm giving them praise for them, but because that's what feels good inside. It's internalized. And the last stand is absolutely clear. Let's make basic rules. Let's just make basic rules. Know this, know that, know this. The rules should be stated clearly. There's no cursing, no disrespect. Know this, know that. Nurtured Heart likes rules in the no version because they're clearer. Like a lot of teachers will put rules up, be respectful. But when you ask the kids, what does be respectful mean? They say no cursing, no put downs, no insults. They always go to the no because the no is clearer. So have basic rules, and when your children violate those rules, give them the consequence. Just give them the consequence every time. That's what the Nurtured Heart says. We're not going to have time to get into a lot of detail on that. We just don't have the time. So, how am I doing on time? Okay, so we have a little bit, I'm going to leave a few minutes at the end. So, the Toys R Us story, when let's say you have an 18-month-old child, and you want to buy them a present, and you buy them an electronic toy that makes 5 exciting sounds when they push a button or pull a lever. So they open up the gift, and they see the toy, and they pull a lever, and it makes a sound that they just love. What do they do next? Pull it again, and pull it again, and pull it again. Now, you bought a toy that makes 5 exciting noises, and they're only using 1. So you might say, try this button over here. So you finally convince your baby to try that button, and it doesn't make a noise that they find exciting. What do they do next? Pull the lever. So the message of the Toys R Us story is, when we come into this world, we start interacting with the people around us, and we repeat the behaviors that get the biggest reaction. What happens when a baby first says their first words? Do adults go crazy? That helps the child learn to speak. What about when the baby takes their first step? Do we go nuts? You ever hear a parent, after their baby takes their first step, say, yeah, okay, but you could have ran? No, you don't hear that. Because we know that we want to celebrate those baby steps, because that's what gets them learning. How about when they smile for the first time? We go nuts. That's why they repeat the behavior. So that's the idea behind the Toys R Us and behind Nurtured Heart. Kids want to see adults animated and connected, and they get more of that when they break our rules than when they follow. When they violate our norms. Have I pounded that point home enough? So maybe it's time to see a video. Baby's having a tantrum. We're filming it. Who can tell me, why is the tantruming baby relocating his tantrum? Anybody know? Because his favorite toy to play with, his mommy, is not giving him the reaction, and he can't assess whether he's getting the reaction he wants because she keeps relocating. Now, this isn't classic Nurtured Heart, because Nurtured Heart, please don't leave here tonight and say, Frank said, when you see behaviors you like, notice them and give them detailed feedback. You got that right. But when you see behaviors you don't like a fake tantrum, ignore it. That's not Nurtured Heart. She's ignoring the baby by walking away. I have a 3-year-old grandson, but when he was younger, sometimes he would throw tantrums. And I would stand right next to him while he was throwing the tantrum. And I knew he wasn't wet, and I knew he had been fed, and I knew he wasn't in pain, because we, of course, checked those things. He was just angry because he couldn't do something he wanted to do. And so I stood by him. He was crying. I didn't ignore him. I looked at him, made sure he was safe and everything, and he was crying, he was crying. What was I waiting for to give attention to? What was I waiting for to begin? Some sort of stopping of crying. So when the baby stops crying, to take a breath, I go, oh, you're calming down. Come on, let's go. And if they start screaming again, I stand up again. I'm not ignoring them. I'm waiting for the moment that I want to give my energy to. That's what I'm waiting for. It will end all tantrums. It ends tantrums, because the only way tantrums continue is if they get rewarded. I've seen parents going, go ahead, cry all you want. I'm not going to pay attention to you. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. No, you're not getting it. You're just not. You're not. They don't realize that that's entertaining. That's what the kid wants, the engagement. All you have to do is stand by so you don't have to disappear. Do I have time for that? The video game theory is something that explains all of the nurture heart. Would you agree that our kids seem to be addicted to video games? That if you don't have a kid who's addicted, but you've seen kids that are addicted, there's an addicting quality. Let me ask you, anybody here ever play video games? Okay, we got some video game players, so answer, guys, if you want to, especially the kids. What do all level ones in all video games have in common? What is it? Very good. They're easy. And for extra credit, why do you think video game creators make level 1 so easy that anyone who tries to play the game feels like a champion on level 1? Why do they do that? Why? I know, but why if a game has 19 levels of difficulty, why don't they start you at level 19 the first time you ever play? What would be wrong with that? That was such a perfect answer. You nailed it. You nailed it. You stuck right with it and you worked it out. And I saw the wheels turning. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. So the idea is that it's brilliant. If I'm going to introduce you to the game, I'm going to make it so that you're going to be successful. And while you're being successful, you'll learn the rules of the game too, right? We need to do that in schools. We need to figure out what's your math level, what's your English level, what's your reading level, and then we need to give you work that is right where you could kill it and nail it. And when you experience that success, the next time I give you work, it's going to be a little harder and a little harder. We're never going to stay down here, guys. But here's the mistake we make. We set expectations that are too far above where our kids are currently. They look and see that, and it's like a kid starting a video game at level 19. They quit. And once they quit, you're in trouble. Get kids to feel successful, and then they'll try harder and harder as you raise the bar. That's the first brilliance of video games. The second thing, who can tell me, this is again for the kids in the audience, who can tell me what happens every single time in a video game that you do something good that the video game wants you to do? What happens every time? Go ahead. What does the game do to show you that they think you're doing an awesome job? You want some help? Because you're right there. You're right there. What do you think? You get points. You get bells. You get whistles. The game says, you're awesome. Great job. Way to go. One more thing. Oh, you got double bonus. Want fantastic. In a video game, you get constant reinforcement of you're being on the right track. That's why brilliant teachers in class do this. Okay, who's got the answer to this? A bunch of hands shoot up. Look at the hands shooting up. It's so impressive that you're raising your hand. I'm going to pick on you. What do you think? That's an awesome answer. They're making a video game environment, giving positive reinforcement as you approximate the behaviors. That's why the kids don't want to leave the video games. I walk into classes in other schools, and I sit in class, and I see kids raising their hand, no acknowledgement. Answering a tough question, no acknowledgement. Taking a tough redirection and quieting down and getting back to work, no acknowledgement. It's like a video game that's broken. They're not getting any excitement. Then they throw a book across the class, and the video game starts. That's unacceptable, blah, 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 blah. And they say, wow, this is where the fun is. Is the fun, let me ask you a question. When your kids push the button of doing their homework and getting it done, what's the reaction? Is it a fun reaction? But if they push the button and refuse to do their homework, what's the reaction? Are you more animated video game when they do the wrong thing? How about a video game that would give you points and bells and whistles every time you mess up? That would train you to be a mess up. You all with me on that? Did I lose anybody on that? That's the last thing I want to talk about with video games are, when video games set a limit, how do they set the limit? When you're on a video game and you're driving on a race course and you're trying to win and you have no more lives and it's a race course on a mountainous race course and you take a turn too fast and you go through a guardrail, off into a ravine and smash into a fiery death. What's the next thing that comes up on the screen? What is it? Right, or game over. Let's say game over. Does a voice come over the screen giving you a lecture about how recklessly you drove? Does the screen now read, because you drove so recklessly and crashed to your death, you can't just restart the game and get back into it? So do kids learn the next time they get in the game to take that turn slower? And they learned without a lecture and without a big punishment. They got right back in the game and learned. This is the mistake we're making in our schools and in homes. We're consequencing kids too long, taking them out of the game. A game that they're not really enjoying playing because we don't give them positive reinforcement when they're doing the right things. We only become animated and excited when they do the wrong things. That's the difference. The Nurtured Heart says, make a conscious effort to notice the things your children are doing that you're pleased with. Notice the things. If you have a child who's not doing their homework and they come home and they open up their book bag and take their homework out, instead of saying to yourself, let me wait till they quit and try to get over on just doing 2 problems, go up to them and say, I'm so glad that you took your homework home, you're sitting down without me asking, and you're starting to work on your homework. Celebrate that step, and they'll take another step. Celebrate that step, and they'll take another step. I promise you that works. Over time, you teach them that doing what you want them to do is going to get a more connected, exciting relationship. So let's go to recognition statements, and then I'll stop. So you've heard me say detailed feedback. I want to give you some concrete examples. Now, these are the things that you tell me, detailed or general praise. General praise is, I don't tell you what I'm pleased with. Detailed praise is, I give you descriptions of what you're doing that I'm pleased with. Give me something good that one of your children may have done. Something good. What's a small thing or a big thing, whatever. What's something that one of your kids might have done that's good? What? Wash the dishes. What's that? Oh, wow. That is a big thing. Okay. So your kid just washed the dishes without being asked. Okay? So here's general praise. Good job. I'm proud of you. Way to go. Who can tell me, this is unfair because I haven't done this with you, but who can give me a detailed description of what just happened and not just say good job? Because for a child who may have a negative narrator, they may not know what good job is about. So can anybody give me, well, I'll teach you the first one, active recognition. Active recognition says, this is the way the statement comes out. I see that you did X, Y, and Z. So what would it be in that case? I noticed that you washed the dishes without being asked. That's active recognition. I'm not saying I'm proud of you is a bad thing, guys. That's a beautiful thing to say to your children, but it gives them no information. It only tells them about you. It doesn't tell them about what they did. They may not know what you're referring to. A child with good self-esteem who feels pretty good about themselves will say, he's proud of me because, or she's proud of me because I did the dishes, and they didn't even have to ask. And that kid, you don't have to worry about. You don't have to be so detailed with. But a kid with lower self-esteem who doesn't believe in themselves, be detailed. And in general, in case you're wondering, be detailed with both of them. It won't hurt. Okay, so that's active recognition. You don't need to see a teacher doing active recognition, do you? I mean, it's basic. Experiential recognition is my favorite. So somebody give me an active recognition example. I see or I notice of something that you might notice or see your child doing that you're pleased with. Somebody make that statement. I see or I noticed you. I see that you cleaned your room. Now, you turned it into experiential, and names don't matter. But if the second type of recognition is experiential, you would end with, this tells me what about you? What quality are you living by cleaning your room? What characteristic are you showing? What value are you living? So finish this for me. I see that you cleaned your room. This tells me... I thought you were going to go for a double right off the bat. I lost my train of thought. Can anybody help me with the second part of the double? You're being responsible and taking initiative. It doesn't have to be a double. I was just excited about the possibility of a double on the first time we did this. But that was good. So I love experiential. So let's somebody on this side give, I see or I notice that something that you might see your child doing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. You guys are picking really good things. And then somebody on this side say, and this tells me what about you? So somebody over here. I noticed or I saw you being kind to your sister. This tells me what about you? You're very caring. Beautiful. Now somebody on this side, give us an active recognition, and then we're going to ask somebody on this side to turn it into experiential. I noticed or I saw you the other day. Describe the behavior. Don't describe a quality. Active recognition is describing the behavior. So I saw or I noticed you doing what? Putting? Oh, taking the dishes out of the dishwasher that are clean and putting them away. This tells me what about you? You're what? You're cooperative. I want bigger things. It's like, what we don't recommend is, I saw that you followed my instructions. It tells me that you are obedient, you know? Stay away from little things. Come up with big things, big qualities. What's that again? Oh, I love that. That's good for you too, right? That's beautiful. I love experiential recognition. I want to show you a teacher doing experiential recognition with a young girl who's struggling to get the answer out. Watch how she patiently waits, and then listen to the experiential recognition the teacher gives her.
Haley, what other kind of matter do we see in these pictures?
We can see a solid.
Very good, Haley. And what solid do you see in the picture?
I see the hair dryer is almost a shape like an oval.
And the hair dryer is a solid, liquid, or gas?
Solid.
It's a solid. Haley, I love the way you took your time. You showed a lot of courage there. It looks like you were kind of getting your thoughts together. And I appreciate you focusing and giving me a great answer. Give yourself a high five for that. All right, what other kind?
That kid will remember that. She was struggling to get that answer out of her mouth. But when she got the answer out, the teacher goes, Haley, I noticed that you were getting your thoughts together and gathering them up and coming up with a great answer. Way to go. High five. That she could have said, good job. but she gave Haley evidence. Give your kids evidence. In the moment, don't wait. Give them evidence of the kindness you want to grow. Give them evidence of the responsibility, the beginning buds of responsibility. Give them evidence. And you could even be tricky like this gym teacher. Watch this gym teacher. Well, you tell me if these kids deserve this recognition or not.
I do have to say that the way that you're hurrying to go turn in your ball at the end of lunch so that you're not late to class shows that you really value getting to class on time. And I really respect that about you. Thank you.
Do you think they were returning their basketballs to hurry up and get back to class on time? Doesn't matter. They got credit for it. They lived it. They owned it. This is how you can set them up for success. You see kids doing something, attach a reasonable value to it, and you're building that value in them. I think I want to show you one other one. Well, I want to follow your advice because I'm running out of time. There's a few more recognitions, and we didn't, so stand one. What's stand one? Absolutely no. What does it mean? What am I saying no to? Right. I'm not going to give a lot of attention to the things I don't want to grow. What is stand two? Absolutely yes. What am I saying yes to? Noticing the good things and giving detailed recognition. I see you emptying the dishwasher. It's impressive to me that I didn't even ask you to. Thank you very much. Say it in your own way. Some of the things that I've said may not be your style. Say it in your own way so it doesn't sound too weird. But I had a parent went home after one of these trainings, and she said to her daughter exactly that. She said, you know, you just emptied the dishwasher, and I didn't even ask you to. Thank you. You're really helping me. And the daughter said, did you go to some sort of training or something? Why are you acting weird? Is that Rutgers thing? And the mother just kept at her day after day. In a week, the mother was scrambling. She's a single mother getting lunches together for her 12-year-old and 15-year-old children. And the daughter was sitting there watching her mother scrambling as she was getting ready to go out the door and drive to work, making their lunches. And the daughters looked at her, and the mother said, what? And she said to her mother, you know, Mom, you're a really good mother. You work hard. You're a single mother. You're making our lunches. Thank you. I love you. The daughter eventually got that in this family, we notice each other. We notice the kindness that we're doing to each other. It took her a week to start getting on board with it, but then she started trying it because her mother got through that weirdness. If you go home and start describing good behaviors to your kids, they're going to think you're weird. If you cut down on making a big deal about when they mess up, guys, I'm not saying you don't give them consequences or hold them accountable. Just don't make a show of it. Give them the consequence and be boring. Save your long talks for the things you're pleased about. I'm going to be back when? On March 7th, I'm going to do a part 2 where we get into the details. So I apologize. I have a couple of minutes if anybody's got questions or wants more clarity. Yes? Well, you could teach it to them and say, in this family, we point out the positives. We do not go on and on about negatives. We don't. We don't do that. Another thing, it's the older child being critical of the younger child? Right, so the second oldest is being critical of the youngest. The younger. Okay, an older kid is being critical of a younger kid. Okay, and so stand one. Are you, when they're doing that thing, when the middle one is doing the critical comments, do you not give it a lot of energy? Yeah. I would say, what's the shortest, briefest redirect or reset that you could give to the critical child? What's the briefest, least animated thing that you can think of? Let's not be critical. Can you beat 4 words? No. No. And then when they stop, go, thank you, and let it go. And if it continues, then we'll talk about this next time. You might have to put them in reset and just say, you need to reset yourself to your more positive self, because this critical self isn't you. And, okay, so reset yourself. And we'll explain what that is next time. And the second stand, have you ever noticed this child being anything that could resemble supportive? That's when you got to go gaga on them. And you got to pull them aside and say, what I just saw you do there was being a big brother or big sister. That was impressive. He was hurting. You could have been cruel or mean, but you didn't. You were kind and nice. And I love seeing that. I think that's who you really are. Whatever way you would say it. That's the way I would say it, but that might be awkward. So stand 1 says minimal reactions, but a redirection. Stand 2 says notice it, the little beginnings of kindness and celebrate it in big ways. And stand 3 would be, if it continues, set a limit. And there is consequences for being cruel. And and I believe in natural and logical consequences. Maybe they have to give something to their sibling, or maybe they have to do something kind for their sibling. And they might say, I don't want to do something kind. And say, okay, no privileges until you think of something you can do that's kind. And that can be a 5-second consequence because you do it right now, or it could be a 3-day consequence if you're a real stubborn kid. But I'm not setting the time, you are. And I would never make them do it. I would say, here's the expectation and here's the consequence if you don't, which is, in fact, giving them an option. I don't know. That's my answer. Any other questions for clarity? I think you guys committed to 7:30, and it's, what is it, 6:20, 8:21? 8:30. So we have 9 minutes. Is there any other questions or any clarity? Or is anybody having a problem with anything that we can clarify? Something that doesn't make sense to you in your own parenting philosophy? Something that contradicts the way you do? What? Go ahead. What's your question? What's that? How do you get your sister to be nice to you? Is she ever nice to you?
Sometimes she is.
And when she is, you want to say, what's her name?
Emily.
You want to say, Emily, you're such a nice big sister. Big or younger? Big sister. Thank you for being nice to me. I love it when you're nice to me. And then run away. Because she's not going to be able to handle that. And if you hover, she's going to say something mean. So, when she's mean, just say, that hurts my feelings, and walk away. Don't cry or make a big scene, because part of that she wants. She wants that. Just show her that when she's nice, you really are going to, be happy about it, and tell her that you appreciate it. And when she's mean, just tell her, I don't like that, and just walk away. If you argue with her or try to fight back, you're feeding it. You know what I mean? Like she might like that, and that's my suggestion. And I think that what your question tells me is that you really want a better relationship with your sister, and you really love her and wish that she would be nicer, And I think that she will when she realizes, I think she likes the reaction. Okay? Good question. So a lot of this is growing the flowers and starving the weeds. And you have to decide in your families, what are the flowers? And they're going to get relationship and descriptive recognition. What are the weeds? They're going to get less energy, less conversation, and maybe a limit or a consequence. And what are your rules? We didn't even get into the stand 3, so you didn't get the whole thing tonight. You got some of it. There's a lot that we can say about setting limits. But I'll say this, when you're setting limits and giving a consequence, like let's say you're going to say to your kid, you have to do extra chores tonight. We want you to say it with very little drama. I really want this to be, have you guys watched, has anybody here seen a football game? Have you seen a referee in any sport? When a referee gives a penalty, have you ever seen them do this? Damn it, number 91, you're offsides. What's your problem? Why'd you do that? I can't believe it. Do you practice? I don't think you practice. I don't think you went to college. 10-yard penalty, repeat first down. No, what you see them do is this. Number 91, offense, 10-yard penalty, repeat first down. And then they walk away. Parents have to realize when you yell and scream or go on and on, you're giving messages you don't realize you're giving. You're giving messages, boy, that really got my attention. Boy, I really care about you. Boy, I think you're really lazy or stubborn or mean or cruel. We don't want any of those messages. What we want to say is, stop it. And here's your consequence. And then I really mean that. Don't hover. Don't hover. Hovering means I'm waiting for a reaction. I want to go back and forth with you. How many of you really love going back and forth with your kids when you set a limit? You know how you stop that? Walk away. Give the consequence and walk away. And then they'll be whining and complaining, and then you'll feel compelled to give them more consequences for that. Just let them do that. And then when they start to calm down, blow them away with this. When they're calm and sitting on the couch sulking because they haven't been able to get you into a power struggle, say to them, you're really managing your feelings very well, and you're handling this consequence really well. And then they'll say, does that mean I don't have to serve it? And you'll go, no. But I'm impressed. Last question. So let me see if I get this right. You're saying that you give them a consequence. You have to go to your room. Huh? Okay, that's a really good example. That you tell the child to complete the homework, the child does not complete the homework, you let them experience the natural consequence. They get a consequence at school with their grade, and then this happens day after day after day. And so it happens a bunch of times. So this isn't nurtured heart, but this is kind of like my recommendation. What my recommendation is that child is saying to you, I need more structure around homework time. I need more, like for example, I'm too distracted by being allowed to get on the phone or play games or watch TV before I do my homework. So I need you to help me. And you'll go up to them and say, it seems like we need to reorder your day when you get home. The first thing you need to do is homework. And then after homework, you can have any of the normal freedoms that you have. Until you do your homework, you can't have any of them. And if your child doesn't do their homework and doesn't get on the phone and doesn't watch TV and does that for a few days, it's a bigger issue. There's something about the homework that's really, and I really have a lot of feelings about homework. Huh? Yeah, but I just think that, I think that my point is, right, we shouldn't go off on a tangent there. We'll stick with this, is that I like the fact that you let the natural consequences happen. When the natural consequences happen, you really have to dig deeper and say, what is going on? But I always said to my children, and it worked really well, because I had a son who refused to do homework. I let him suffer the natural consequences, and I told him, when you choose not to do homework or not to make an effort, you're choosing not to go out. I'm not. You can go out. I'm just saying, first homework has to happen, and that worked for him. I think that's a good thing. But I think sometimes we have to sit down with them in a calm moment, not when we're arguing with them and saying, here's the deal. But one of the things I strongly recommend you caution against is if your child is involved in something they love, like a sport team, like a club, like Boy Scouts, like a swim team, please don't take those things from them as punishments. You'll pay a price for that. If they're engaged in something healthy and positive, do not use it to take it from them. If they're with their phone or their video games, that's different. But I've seen kids who were on a football team, loving football and feeling good about themselves, and they started failing school, and the parents took them out of football as a consequence and began spiraling out of control from the biggest support network the child had. Sometimes, if you're reaching for the most painful consequence, that may be the biggest mistake you make. Keep dialoguing with your kid and try to find out what is at play here. What is going on that we have to fight about this? How can we work something out, But don't take away healthy, positive activities because you might be burying them. I've seen this a million times. I really, really appreciate your time. I hope this has been helpful. What's the date again? March 7th, we'll talk, we'll review this. Did you have something you wanted to say? What did he say?
That's a whole nother presentation.
What did he say?
Are you saying that video games are good for me?
I'm saying that video games have figured out that you love being in environments where you get recognized and celebrated for your success. And if we created that in our families, in our schools, in our communities, kids would never want to violate rules because they would be ejected from environments that make them feel successful. Kids are dying to be successful, and we have to celebrate their success so they feel successful. And I think a lot of kids see school as a place where they fail, a place where they don't measure up, and we're changing that. We're working on changing that. Thank you.
Thank you again, and just a reminder, and there probably will be an email that will go out in another flyer and an invite. March 7th feels like it's a long time away from now, but it'll be here before you know it. I realize that we did run out of the handouts, so we will probably put them in an email to you. You think, Jean, we would probably put them out in an email to the parents who missed the handouts. And thank you again for your participation. And I have to say that I think the children in the room tonight did a great, great job participating. I want to give them a round of hand. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone, and I hope to see you back here in March. Great. Thanks, Frank. You did a great job.
I think it was a good turnout.
I just wanted to thank you.
Oh.
It was fantastic.
Oh, I'm glad that you liked it.
I really appreciate it. It was fantastic.
Oh, wow, that makes
So
you feel
I'll
good.
definitely be here in March.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, the same way, yeah. This is so useful. It's just right on time. I was very struggling with how to deal with my daughter. And what I heard, that is something that I'm going to use. I'm trying, I was thinking on how to deal with her. But I don't have a clear picture until I hear this. I said, oh, well, this is the way to go. Thank you so much.
I'm
This is
really
very
glad.
nice.
I wish you the best with this. It's hard because we get so triggered by the bad behavior.
Yeah.
And the things that we're worried are like they're starting to get some bad habits, and we start investing and getting really
Yeah.
connected. Don't. Just look for anything that's better than that.
I just have one very difficult question based on the lady asked. you said my daughter likes in chorus, likes in the band, in all these
Yeah.
type of groups. You said that I should not take this as a consequences if they go off of my limits. But the thing is that my daughter doesn't play videos. My daughter doesn't have a phone. My daughter does not have any other.
But she
like,
still
never-
does all the band stuff?
She does that, but the trouble between her and me is that she doesn't go to bed on time. She focuses on the scores. She values about her studies so much that, like tomorrow there's a quiz, so she would go to 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. That drives me crazy. Like I said, it's just a quiz. I don't care. I said, even you give me a B or C, I don't care.
You're worried that she's going to drive herself too hard.
Too hard.
And then she's going to have like.
So I said, Vienna, please go to bed. So, and then I close the door, and she's gonna turn her lights on, like not like these lights, like
Little
little
light.
lights in the dim. And she started reading.